Ladies and gentlemen, this time we're going to begin the funeral services of Mr. Walter Julius Straus. I invite everybody here to be sure that your cell phones have been turned off, and we welcome those of you who are online. Rabbi Ralph Rubner, close family friend, will be officiating. And at this time, we are humbled and honored to have the honor guard to present the flag to Carol in memory of Walter. We want to thank the Honor Guard presenting the flag this afternoon. Rabbi Ralph Rubner will now begin the religious portion.
The Jewish people respond to death with 3 words of blessing. In English, the words mean, "Praised is the judge of truth." Let us begin our service with the wisdom of our tradition. Please repeat these words of blessing after me. Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. Praised is the judge of truth. Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach. Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach. Adonai has given and Adonai has taken. Praise be the name of Adonai. I call on Herb Strauss for a few words this time.
Originally, I wasn't going to talk, and as I was driving here today, I felt that I had to say a couple things. My dad had some last wishes that many people in the room, because they know me and know my family, one of the things he had always said that if he ever got sick in Wisconsin, he actually used to tell me he wanted me to take him, push him in the middle of the lake on a rowboat, and just let him float away. So one of the things that he always had said that if I'm going to die, I want to be buried with things that are meaningful to me that had nothing to do with religion. And so in his casket with him is in 1959, he caught a 54-inch muskie that it was mounted at my parents' house. And that rod is in the casket with them, along with 3 hats that represent things that my dad liked. One was these. He was a member of Ducks Unlimited. The second was the Apple Dumpling Gang, which was a snowmobile club that he was a member of. And the third was just a regular old fishing hat that represented the water. It's funny, when someone passes away, there's things you don't know until you start looking at things. And I had to find his discharge papers, and I did not know until yesterday that he actually got 6 service awards, some in the United States and some in France, including the Meritorious Distinguished Service Award. I never knew that he had gotten that. My dad was really a private person and didn't talk about a lot of things in life, and it was interesting to find out. I knew he had medals and everything, but I really didn't know what they represented. But all his awards are actually on his discharge papers. And it's funny the stories that can come out after someone passes that you don't know about somebody. That's all I really wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Herb. Joining me today is Rabbi Jeffrey Weil and Cantor Benjamin Warshawski from New York, and he'll be joining us at this time. So I call on Cantor Warshawski to recite Psalm 121.
Esainai el harim, me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai, ose shamayim v'aretz, אל ייתן למות רגלך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך על יד ימינך, יומם השמש לא יככה, וירח בלילה. אדוני ישמרך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה ועד עולם.
While we'll recite this psalm in English at this time.
Esa Enai El Haharim. I lift my eyes unto the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. Behold, the Shomer Yisrael, the protector of Israel, neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian and your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going out and your coming forth, now and forever.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בנוסטשי ירביצני, על מי מנוחוס ינהלני, נפשי ישובב ויענפני במעגלי צדק, גם כי הלך בגיא צלמוות, לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צוררוי. דישנת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. חסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי ושבתי בביס אדוני לאורך ימים.
Is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Cantor Warshawski will now chant Tzadik Tamar.
Tzadik Tamar yifrach ke'erez ba'levanon yizkeh shetulim bebeit Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu Od yenuvun beseiva Deshenim merananim yiho lehagid ki yashar Adonai tzuri tzuri velo
Thank you, Cantor, for this beautiful rendition. I know it has a special meaning for Carol and for the family, and for those of us who go back to Habonim and to Ezra Habonim. This is really something very special. Thank you so much. Dear Carol, Herb and your wife Eileen, Joel and your wife Lisa, granddaughter Brittany and your husband Dan, grandson Jonathan, John, grandson Sam and your girlfriend Andrea, granddaughter Alana and your husband Chris, grandson Joshua, grandson Noam, great-grandson Shane, Rebecca and boyfriend Brian, sister-in-law and brother-in-law through love, Rosalyn and Randy Jaffe, and your children Todd, Aaron, and Tracy, and their spouses Tara, Serena, and Eric. We all share in your loss and extend our condolences and love at this very difficult time to you. The family has asked me to acknowledge the amazing help of Walter's caregivers Maggie, Tulu, Joanna, and Bola, who cared for Walter for a long time with great professionalism, but especially with love. We're here today to honor the life of Walter Straus on his 97th birthday today, and on Lag BaOmer and Erev Shabbat. Walter Julius Straus, Yitzchak ben Chaim, was born on April 30, 1924, in the city of Mannheim in Germany. His father, Adolf, was a World War I veteran who served in the German army. His mother, Helena, known as Tony, nee Solomon, was a master musical performer and came to Germany from her native country of Luxembourg. During the turbulent post-war years and the Great Depression, Walter's father prospered in the iron manufacturing business. They lived on a very large estate and had a number of servants. From the age of 4, Walter, an only child, was raised by a nanny. He attended public school and received his Jewish education at a cheder. His bar mitzvah in 1937 was overshadowed by the restrictions that were imposed by the Nazi regime. During Kristallnacht on November 9 and 10, 1938, his parents used their factory to shelter many Jews from the violent pogrom. Immediately after Kristallnacht, his parents began to prepare their emigration. They received the necessary affidavits from cousins in New York City, and they arrived there less than a year later, on June 8, 1939, on the ship George Washington, the very ship that took Walter back to Europe a few years later as an American soldier. What a coincidence. The family fortune was seized by the Nazis. They arrived in the United States with a few pieces of furniture and a few dollars in their pockets, and they started again. They settled in Chicago, where the family had additional cousins. More than 50 members of the extended family had perished in the Holocaust. And that certainly made a mark on Walter. He completed grade school and high school in the Edgewater community in Chicago. The family joined Temple Ezra, first located on Aldine and then on Hollywood at the former Greek church, and eventually on Touhy Avenue. He enlisted in 1943, was trained in the United States for 6 months as a medic, and then he was sent off to Europe. He served on the front line in northern France and Belgium as a medic, where he saw the unimaginable terror, the horror of war, the many dead, the wounded, and survivors who were psychologically scarred for the rest of their lives. His final assignment was in England as a sergeant stationed at a military base, serving in different capacities, but the one that he liked best was an interpreter to more than 500 German POWs. Back in the States, he used the GI Bill to learn a trade, watch repairing and making jewelry. He lived at home with his parents and helped to support them by renting a table at a bank in Albany Park where he repaired watches. Then moved his growing business to a larger facility at a dry cleaners. And eventually he opened his own store at Lawrence and Pulaski. Years later, in the mid-1980s, he opened a jewelry store west of Chicago in the town of Berwyn, which he operated for some 30 years until his retirement. He saved up money from his early jobs to purchase a home for his parents to make their lives in America a little more comfortable. Walter was introduced to Carol in 1960 by her German Jewish colleague at Carson's, where Carol worked while attending and studying Roosevelt University. On their first date, they were supposed to go out to see a movie, but Walter made himself very comfortable in her parents' apartment and carried on a conversation for hours with her father, Arthur Jesselson, about Mannheim and other German matters. Carol thought that this would be their last date. Well, they got married a year later, on February 19, 1961. Herb was born a year later, and Joel came along in 1966. When their apartment became too small for the growing family, Walter, on his own initiative, without saying a word, went out and bought a house in Evanston, took Carol for a ride, and presented her with a new house along with all the house keys. To say that Carol was surprised, as well as angry, is an understatement. It took her years to forgive him for excluding her from this task of house hunting. But apparently he did it again years later when he purchased a vacation home in St. Germain, Wisconsin. Walter was a complex man. He did not wear his heart or his feelings or his emotions on his sleeve. If one did not know him personally, one would surmise that this man is reserved, formal, and even uncaring. In a manner of his own upbringing in Germany, he did not hug or kiss his children or show them affection, or to Carol, certainly not publicly. After all, his two sons told me he was German. But the true Walter was very different. He showed his love to his family by working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, in order to provide for them with all their needs. He did the same for his parents and for Carol's parents, visiting them a few times a week with all the groceries that he personally purchased for them. Generally, Walter was not there for his sons when they needed help with homework, nor did he attend school and other school activities with them. He was always at work. As the boys tell me, love was to provide for the family. The other Walter was a very generous person, but he was very private about this. He would quietly take a homeless individual into a restaurant and feed him with a complete meal, or assist a customer financially in an emergency, or even pay the rent of another who was about to be evicted. He never turned away a person who came to him in time of need. Tomorrow we will read selection from Parashat Emor, Leviticus chapters 21 through 24, which is rich with so many mitzvot, commandments, more than 60, about 10% of all the mitzvot in the Torah, lodged between the laws of observing the festival of Shavuot and the observance of the first day of the 7th month, which is not named in the Torah, but is known to us in the Tanakh as Rosh Hashanah, is the mitzvah of Pe'ah and Leket, not a very common commandment. Chapter 23, verse 22, teaches that a farmer, one who owns land, must not harvest the entire field, but to leave the corner of the field and the gleanings of the harvest for the poor and the stranger. The story of Ruth comes to mind. Our sages and Torah commentators explained that since the festivals focused on divine service in the temple in Jerusalem, that one who leaves food for the poor in the field is regarded as though he himself had built the temple in Jerusalem and performed divine service there. This mitzvah reminds me of Walter. Pe'ah and Leket respect the dignity of the person in need. The mitzvah is done privately, and usually both the donor and the recipient remain anonymous. Some commentators say that this mitzvah is the source of the mitzvah of tzedakah. For Walter, charity was a private matter. He did not care for fundraising, solicitation letters, public appeals in the synagogue or through other organizations. He did not want to be identified publicly for what he did privately. There was another gentler side to Walter. Although he did not care for long synagogue services or boring sermons, he was known to doze off or just walk out. He loved the holidays of Passover and Purim. His rendition in German of Chad Gadya at the end of the Seder with all the sound effects, all in German, is legendary. So were his outrageous Purim costumes, which he wore to the synagogue. His sons describe him as a stoic person who carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, and that few people got to know his lighter side. Walter was not a very observant person, but his Judaism reflected the words of the prophet Hosea. Loving kindness is what God desires, not sacrifices. Walter was a working machine. He did not have time to read novels, go to the theater or movies, or get involved in synagogue activities or synagogue politics. He left it up to you, Carol. But he did have a number of passions. Foremost was fishing. then gardening, taking flying lessons, racing his snowmobile through the northern woods of Wisconsin, collecting clocks, and enjoying a long weekend with family in Saint Germain. He loved to tell jokes. He had a wonderful sense of humor and a contagious smile, even more so in later years. Herb and Joel recognize that he has passed to them a legacy of hard work and family responsibilities. They certainly stepped up to that challenge when Walter became ill. This is your life, Walter Straus. You did very well. Go in peace and get your well-deserved rest. May the life of Walter Straus be an inspiration and a blessing to us all. Amen. Please rise as Cantor Warshawski will chant El Male.
El mole rachamim shofein bameramim hamitzimenu kanechono tachas kanefei hashechino Malos kedoshim utehorim kezohar harakia mazhirim es nishmas Yitzchak ben Chaim shehalach leolamo began menuchaso ono bal harachamim hastireo beseiser kinofer leolamim utzeror bitzeror achaim es nishmaso Adonai Yehunachaloso Beyanuach Shalom al mishkavo
You may be seated now. This concludes the service here.
Ladies and gentlemen, the interment service will continue at New Light Cemetery, 6807 East Prairie in Lincolnwood. For those of you who will be joining the procession will be forming in the parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing a car in the back of the procession to hopefully keep other cars from entering the procession. Please use your horn liberally as you're going through the intersections, and please do not speak or text on your cellular phone while driving to the cemetery. Memorial contributions to the Michael I. Jacobson Memorial Global Fund would be appreciated. For those of you who are here, that information is on the service folder, and for the many people that are joining us online, you can find that information on our website. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite everyone to please rise and stand in place as we escort the casket of Walter Julius Straus from the chapel. Then you may return to your cars. Those of you who have been asked to serve as pallbearers, please come forward.